下心。杯子不落地，像生命里。
Good afternoon, everybody. 大家好. My name is Heng Sure, and welcome to our lecture series on the picture biography of Master Empty Cloud. 大家应该说是早安哈，那么 also 午安。Today is Saturday, March 9th here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. It is Friday evening, 7:30 p.m. 应该说晚安 for those of you who are in California listening and other places. My name is Heng Sure. As I said, we're going to be investigating Master Empty Cloud's picture biography today. So let's get started. And Wang Jinxia is going to request Dharma in just a moment. 他等一下会请法。We want to first make 3 half bows from wherever you're sitting, if you're sitting, and then we will get underway. 那我们先礼佛三文心礼，然后我们请王锦霞帮我们请法。Here we go. Let's go back. There we are. Okay, are we ready? Let's do the bowing. OK， 王锦霞，你如果想请法，请你现在开始。
恭请大德僧听，为此法会，济一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi sanmiao sanputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi sanmiao sanputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All right, we appreciate Chen Yu Jushi's help in making that Dharma request work. All right, here we go. Let's acknowledge country to say we respectfully acknowledge the Kombu-Meri people of the Ugambi language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where the monastery is located. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 就说我们恭敬地承认与冈北语族的贡布马里人是我们寺院所在地的传统叙事者和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从未放弃主权的第一民族的原住们、原居们致敬。Yes, that is the case. Okay, we have one more thing to do as we get underway here, which is we want to chant the bell song, following the instructions of our teacher who was following the Kentai tradition. The bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 佛法众生传3000界内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报烦恼后的。Okay, well done. All right. Thank you for that Dharma request. We are wanting to tell everybody that if you would like to listen to this lecture in Chinese, please go down to the corner of your browser and see the interpretation sign. Click on that and you'll see Chinese. 那么大家如果你们想听我所讲的英语翻译很流利的中文普通话，那个软体的右下角就有 interpretation， 有个小地球，那里就有 Chinese 就可以了哈。Also, there is a Vietnamese translation happening at the same time. Go to the chat box where you should see a red number 1 telling you there's information in there. Click on the chat box and you'll find, for Vietnamese translation, use a different Zoom link. Further, today our coordinator, Chen Yu, stepped in to help with the Dharma request. And if you would like to request Dharma in a future episode, please send her an email and we will set you up. All right. Excellent. Today, our talk goes out around the world, beginning in 2 large locations. One is City of 10,000 Buddhas, Ukiah, California, where there are lots of friends helping out. And here in the Gold Coast of Queensland, where our lecture originates and is translated. Our, let's see here, we have a co-host in Baotou, Inner Mongolia, and we have listeners in Vancouver, British Columbia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Majreba, Ben is here. Let's see here, Bernie is down, Bernie and Xingfei are both in Sydney, Celeste is in Hong Kong, Cliff is here in the Gold Coast, Connie is in Cupertino, Sunnyvale, and Cynthia's in Saratoga. Hi, Cynthia. We'll be in the meeting day after tomorrow. Duke Leban's in Montreal. Let's see here. Elaine is in Round Rock, Texas. We have friends in Shenzhen and Alameda. Our translator is there. Guangzhou, Berkeley, California. Jane is here. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Yuhan is in Malaysia. Let's see, Katie is in Union City. Leah is in Waterloo, Ontario. Let's see here. Louis and Christine didn't tell us where they are. Maybe LA? Let's see here. Lynn is in San Rafael. Friends in Liaoning, in San Francisco. St. Petersburg, Florida. Michael is here. Mingfang is in Taipei. Guojuan is in Alameda. Nini might be in Manila, possibly. That'd be nice. Let's see here. Well, Juan is in Mesa, Arizona. Paul is in Pinole. Ron is in San Jose. Sarah's in Tennessee. Yes, indeed. We know that. Let's see here. Shanyu is in Baltimore. Sue is in KL. Susan is in Hercules, California, Bay Area. Sylvia is in Seattle. Tina is in Oklahoma. Willie's in Virginia. So now we switch over to Chinese. We have Taipei and Beijing and 内蒙古包头 and 哈尔滨东北。中国杭州，还有辽宁朝阳、江苏燕城，还有辽宁大连，and 悉尼就在澳大利亚，江苏蓝海黑龙江鸡西Let's see here, Beijing. Hold on. 等一等。There we go. And 安徽宿州，宝鸡陕西，黑龙江泉州福建。Let's see here. 吉林包头，淮南市。Let's see here. 还有山东还有黑龙江，还有河北唐山、包头，哇，那么多内蒙古朋友，哇，难得了。深圳、南京、加拿大、朝阳市，济南市在山东，上海、黑龙江、苏州、上海、长春 and 最后海宁。Okay, welcome everybody. 欢迎各位. Glad you're all here. You're looking at a picture of our teacher in his final years, 9 fingers. Today, our teacher, hero of our story, is bowing again, and he is heading north to heading towards Wutaishan, but he's going through a region that is very sparsely populated. Very few people live where he's going. And he is bowing in the outskirts, not even the outskirts. He's bowing where there's nothing but mountains and plains. No people, no cities, no inns, no hotels, no hufas. Nobody to take care of him. And it is winter. Oh, what are you going to do? Okay, let's take a look. Here's our story. It says, 寄宿小旅店, staying overnight at a small inn. This is the 9th year of the Guangxu reign period, the last Chinese dynasty. And it's 1883. He is 44 years old. Should we begin? 12月末，拜至黄河铁蟹渡，经过广武陵，是处五寺院，不得已寻旅店投宿。郭初一，行脚此位异常辛苦，朝拜山川更为艰难。笔者已曾亲尝其味，饱历风霜，自东北，迢迢万里访名师。At the end of the 12th month, the master, continuing his prostrations, reached the Tiexie crossing of the Yellow River. He passed by the tomb of Guangwu, a place with no monasteries, so he had to spend the night at an inn. This was on the first day of the new year. Travel from then on was extraordinarily bleak and bitter, and making prostrations while climbing mountains and crossing rivers was even more difficult. The writer also had this experience, coming from distant Manchuria, traveling thousands of miles in search of a wise teacher. Okay, here's the image. This is, let's see here. an one shum. Can't quite read the banner. This is here. You have the monk all by himself with two lay people outside the door of a rustic structure with a thatched roof, grass hut, mountains in the background, and you know this is where he's going to stay for one night because he is traveling. He is essentially truly homeless, the way monks are meant to be, and yet he has a mission, which is every third step to bow to the ground, and he's all alone. So, what a challenge. And what do you do at night? Well, different people have different ways. Um, the first American pair, Bhikshu Hangju and Bhikshu Hangyo, they set up their conditions so that if an opportunity to stay in someone's home arose, they would accept the invitation. Of course, they never asked, but if someone invited them, they had agreed with Master Xuyun that that would be fine to stay. Shifu cautioned them be very careful inside because laity do not live by the same standards that monastics live by, and so everything's a test to see what you will do. Mistaking what's before your eyes, you have to start anew. 一切是考验，看你怎么办。对面若不是，须在从头练。That's the situation when a monastic steps under a layperson's roof. But sometimes there was no choice, given the fact that they were bowing up the Pacific Coast Highway. So, through all kinds of weather. Master Empty Cloud also had he accepted invitations to stay in monasteries, and here was an inn, which gave him a chance to what? To get a night's sleep without worrying about wind or rain or insects or troublemakers. He could actually rest. Further, he could, in the inn, probably take a bath and change his socks and replenish his supplies. So, of course, when the opportunity arose, he was okay to stay in an inn. But as the story continues, once he was beyond the range of the inn, there was nothing, no shelter, on his own. And Shifu mentions, he says, bija. Bija is referring to Master Xuyun himself, who says he knows the bitterness of travel, where your bed is not your own. There's a large number of folks who are very much invested in sleeping in a familiar bed, on a familiar pillow, and to night after night after night moving on, sometimes having no bed and no pillow, just the crook of your arm for a pillow. You have to have a tough skin. You got to have a pretty thick bark, hard bark outside that allows you to never have the same bed or pillow from night after night, and not be able to go to sleep after a warm shower and wake up to a nice cup of coffee or tea. None of those comforts are available to a traveler like this. So it takes some very special resolve to be able to continue. So that's our teacher. Let's see what else we can find in this verse. So it's the winter, and he's crossing the Yellow River. He's going north. He passes the Guangwu tombs, and there's no monasteries here. There's no monks. There's no lay people. So he has no choice but to accept the shelter of a small inn alongside of the place where he is bowing. So once, first day of the new year, January 1st, his traveling was really 辛苦. To have Master Empty Cloud use that word, you know it was 辛苦, hard, bitter, difficult to endure, indeed. And to keep going over the mountains, over the rivers, no companions, sometimes just having the feeling that you're making no progress at all. It was very tough. And Master Hua says, I know that experience. 暴风暴力风霜 to, as he says, literally holding, being, grasping the wind and the frost. Shifu says, I know that flavor. I know what that's like because I traveled south from Manchuria and had to cover the miles to get to where I studied the Dharma and then took the precepts when he came south. So, traveling thousands of miles in search of a wise teacher. Okay, let's look at the poem. The verse goes like this. 行脚参方受苦心，朝山拜顶莫信真。露宿双眠无所住，披星戴月享其心. He traveled the country on foot and met bitter suffering. By visiting mountains and making vows, he improved his character. He rested on dew and slept in the mist. He had no shelter. Clothed in the stars and capped by the moon, he overcame his mind. So, the point of this is what? The point is not to make life hard for yourself just to because you enjoy suffering. That would be a misanthrope. That would be someone who has rejected the world. And it's not the case that Master Empty Cloud has rejected the world. He has seen through the world. The world holds no interest for him with the idea of getting wealthy, getting famous, getting powerful. But he has understood that the rewards of the marketplace, fame and glory, wealth, don't satisfy. They don't last. They're clearly transient. They come and they go. And there will always be somebody a little more famous. There will always be somebody a little more rich. And so that kind of pursuit just doesn't hit the spot. In fact, if you look at it deeply, it can turn to suffering when you get something wonderful and it vanishes. And you build up a careful relationship with your family, and then impermanence comes and takes your family away. How unsatisfying is that? How dukkha is that experience? And yet that is, you could say, the characteristic of all conditioned experiences is enjoying it for a while and then it passes on. So here he is out there, not increasing suffering, but simply being willing to make the, what do you say, by making a vow to bow every 3 steps, heading for Wutaishan as a pilgrim, it's funny how it gives you a certain kind of stability, a certain sort of calmness of it. Some people look at bowing every 3 steps and would say, how do you stand the boredom? that's just so boring. The same thing over and over and over. And in fact, for people who have who are perhaps driven by the need for external accomplishment, or maybe people, perhaps your family, maybe it was your dad, for example, who always pushed you to be greater than your accomplishment, or he always made you feel that what you had done was not enough. The opportunity to say, I am going to make this next bow the very best bow it can be. I'm going to focus my mind and make this bow the sum of my life. And then you stand up, you say, well, here's an opportunity to make the next bow another peak. 100% of my presence will be focused on this bow. To be able to see it that way is a life of constant success. There's never any bow that is not successful as long as we're not false thinking or anticipating or regretting, but we're engaged in the process of bowing. It's a life of complete success, bow by bow. So it's very funny how something as simple and repetitive and seemingly unimaginative can turn out to be a source of deep satisfaction all day long. So here he is out there bowing along, and he's got a mission. He's trying to repay his mother's kindness. So as he travels, there's a sense of making progress externally, crossing the miles, but in his heart, he's returning to a place where he feels he will be in touch with the mother whom he, in his mind, he harmed by bringing about her death at childbirth. His coming was her departure. So for Master Empty Cloud to be able to progress towards that sense of, I want to repay my mother's kindness, this is true gasoline, true fuel to power his pilgrimage. He traveled the country, let's see here, clothed in the stars, capped by the moon, he overcame his mind. There's another whole aspect of bowing, which is, in the context of cultivation, it makes perfect sense, which is what? What was the Buddha's accomplishment? The Buddha was able to unpack his self. He was able to transform the view of a self. And by doing that, he returned to the ultimate reality of existence, which is no self, anatta, right? And by doing that, he realized it, he truly realized it. And the way he did that was adopting tools. You could think of every faman, every dharma practice is a tool for helping us reduce some of the words we use, the dominance of the phony self. The hegemony, people know that word. It's like a bawang, right? Like a warlord. The self is there giving us trouble from our first breath all the way to our last. And what the Buddha did was looked into that self that is such a tyrant in our lives and discovered that it was connected to what we call false thoughts. And by bowing once every 3 steps, the self has to give up, because the bowing is such a silly thing to do. What are you doing dropping down to the ground over and over again? Outdoors. Who needs to do that? Well, you do, I do, because what happens when you bow is the self rebels, gets upset, fights back, shouts at you, screams, cries, and then gives up. because the bowing, this simple yogic gesture, just subdues the self. And that need to be more than I am, that need to somehow get out and accomplish, is put to rest. So, clothed in the stars, capped by the moon, he overcame his mind through the practice of bowing. How amazing. And also by just reducing all of his physical requirements down to the basics, to the minimum. You improve your character because the self is not seeking, the self is not greedy or fighting. And you prove to yourself and to others who watch that when you reduce the externals, life gets very rich and very full. How counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think that people say, hey, you should get a Winnebago. Well, you should get a travel trailer. Wouldn't that be better than all this walking and bowing? You could just ride along in a Winnebago, get an Airstream trailer. That would be the answer. And yet, all of those things that we invest our time and our money in actually reduce the amount of actual physical engagement and experience that is the joy of cultivating the middle way as an ascetic practitioner. Okay, there we go. What else happened? I'm going to, so people don't have to only listen to my voice. Namo Do Bao Ru Lai, Namo Bao Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Ma Shi Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Li Bu Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Ru Lai, Namo Amitabha Ru Lai. Ready? Namo Do Bao Ru Lai, Namo Bao Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Ma Shi Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Guang Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Ru Wang Ru Lai, Namo Amitabha Ru Lai. And we want to do it 3 times through. Here's your chance. Namo Do Bao Ru Lai, Namo Bao Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Mya Si Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Sheng Ru Lai, Namo Li Bu Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Ru Lai, Namo Alrighty. Here we go. Now, guess what happened? Snow. Snow fell. It's the new year. It's January 1st. 过黄河遇白水. Okay, 44 years old, 1883. You ready? 初二日，过黄河泊岸，天气黑矣，无处投宿。池客在岸边，白小生一至茅草棚中，复坐待旦。夜静冷饮，起天明， 白雪漫漫，一望无际，化为银装世界。身影尺，不辨方向，无路可通，苦作念佛. On the second day of the month, the master crossed the Yellow River. Upon arriving at the other shore, he realized night was falling fast. Having no place to sleep, he found a small thatched lean-to near the riverbank, where he pulled up into full lotus posture. There he waited for morning, shivering and trembling through the still, cold night. As the dawn grew light, everywhere he looked were vast drifts of sparkling snow, which transformed the countryside into a silvery world. Realizing he would lose his bearings in the deep drifts, he knew there was no way to advance. So the master sat still and recited the Buddha's name. Oh man. It's funny, when I would think of China before I actually knew anything about China, snowfall was never something I considered. But that's because I had no knowledge. I thought China was always southern China, right? Hong Kong or the Grand Canal or tea plantations. Never considered the possibility that there could be endless drifts of white snow. And yet, once we're north of the Yellow River, oh my goodness, snow and snow and snow. So big storm and nowhere to lay his head. So what does he do? He just huddles up above the riverbank and he finds a grass shack that is basically barely covers, barely a roof, barely a wall. And he's a monk, so he uses his coping mechanism, which is crossing your legs and sitting still. But that night, oh my, the storm really moved in. And the next morning, what did he find? He found snowfields to all sides, just expanses of white and silver, a silver world. And because the snow was already too deep to walk in, he was passing through. How is he going to find his direction? He could bow in the wrong direction, which he doesn't want to do. So, with no help, no guide, no map, no GPS, no GPS, imagine. What does he do? He simply sits still and recites the Buddha's name. Oh, man. Imagine if that were you. They say, I've heard that there's, of all the things that the body is deprived of, like water and food and moisture or dryness, all the things, they say the one that is really hardest to bear soonest is cold. Because if your body is cold, once you start to shiver and your temperature changes, your inner temperature, things get very difficult. You just, it's a pressure. And proof of that is your clothes closet. So look at your clothes closet. How many different ways do you have to change the temperature of your body and your skin? Well, if it's too hot, we've got really light fabrics to allow the body to cool off. But if it's too cold, we need to add a layer. We need to put on gloves, put on a hat, put on a scarf, put on socks. Thicker socks, thicker gloves, right? More layers. So much of our clothes is there to keep the temperature just right. Because too much, too little, we're stuck. But here is our monk. He's living outdoors, and he's got no comfort. He's got no protection. He's got no safety. What's he going to do? Amitofo. Very difficult. So he gets, this is January, crosses the Yellow River, gets across. It's dark, it's night. Where are you going to sleep? He's left the inn behind. There's no hotel, there's no motel, there's no inn, rest house, nothing. Airbnb, nothing. And he finds a small thatched lean-to. That's basically grass. So just grass stuck together. And he's sitting in full lotus, which is what monks do, and waiting for morning. So shivering, shivering and shivering. So the sun rises, but what he sees is snow everywhere. In the deep midwinter, snow and snow and snow. So he decides that if he goes out, he's going to get lost. So no way to advance. What do? Sit still, recite the Buddha's name. There he is. Oh man, oh man. I completely empathize. On my pilgrimage, we didn't go inside, but at night, because our route, the Pacific Coast Highway, had a law against camping on the side of the highway. So we had no provisions for camping. We had no tent, but we did have a four-wheeled Bodhimanda. We had a Plymouth station wagon, 1957 Plymouth station wagon. So at night, we could find a place to pull up the car behind a tree, behind a billboard, in a vacant lot, down the street. And because the car, we slept sitting up in the back of the car, and you had to look inside the window to see that there was someone there. So that way we got around the law. We were in fact camping, but we were camping in a car. And so we had the shelter of the car's roof against the wind and the cold. That helped a lot. We had sleeping bags inside the car for our legs as we slept sitting up. And that way we could go through all the different kinds of weather and still not go indoors. So Master Empty Cloud, of course, had no station wagon. He had no car. All he had, you could say, was his mind and his practice. So he recited the Buddha's name without there being any difference between the snow outside and himself, except this grass roof. Amitofo. As they say, he's got a lot of hard bark on him to be able to withstand this kind of bitter test. Shifu said, 黄河白雪草茅棚，复作关心寒冷清。瑞水飘飘迎世界，虽然有我，却无人。At the Yellow River, he met a blizzard and stayed in an open straw hut. Sitting in full lotus, he regarded the mind. The bitter cold attacked him. Silvery snow was whirling and swirling, enveloping the world. Although he was a person, he had no self at all. That last line, 虽然有我，却无人. Although the self existed, in fact, there was no one there. That's another way to translate. Although have self, in fact, nobody there. Beautiful verse explaining the ephemeral state of cultivation. So, what do you all think? Can you imagine challenging yourself to go out and face the weather no matter what? Of course not. It's where we are addicted to comfort. It's why would you not seek comfort? Who would do something like this, putting themselves out in the weather, especially in the middle of a snowstorm? Oh my gosh, what do you do? Zamaban. So, what you do is you find a hotel, you find an Airbnb, you you get a shelter, you call ahead and line up a friend. But none of those things are possible for him. He can only endure what is difficult to endure. Wow. Now, the power of reciting the Buddha's name. Indeed. Sat still and recited the Buddha's name. And that kept his mind in one place. However, he still can't do anything about the conditions outside. Okay, 哎呦，辛苦啊，辛苦。Okay, visualize that. Oh, 忍冻恶感温习 enduring cold and hunger and the appearance of 温习。草棚无遮障，内外东然，全副衣裓，雪花满天飞，饥寒交加，俨然依稀，正念现前，至3日间昏迷，初6日午后血止，未见日影，然已病莫能行医。初7日来意盖者，质问公不能言，助黄米粥令食。Since it was open to the elements, the straw hut offered no protection. The master huddled into a corner while the flying snowflakes filled the sky. His life lingered between waves of cold and hunger. Still, he managed to sustain proper mindfulness. But as the 3rd day approached, he gradually lost consciousness. The snow stopped on the afternoon of the 6th day. He was so seriously ill, he couldn't move towards the faint rays of sun that broke through. On the 7th day, a beggar came along and asked the master a question, but received no reply. The beggar then cooked some yellow rice gruel, which he fed to the master. Oh boy. So situation got worse because it didn't change. He was all alone. He was outdoors, and the elements were deadly. They would definitely take his life in a matter of time. So his life lingered between waves of cold and hunger, but because he recited the Buddha's name, he was still able to keep his mind in one place. But 3rd day, no food, no water, freezing, he gradually lost consciousness. The snow stopped, but our teacher was so ill that he couldn't even move towards the sun to warm up. His limbs were frozen. Then something magical happened. A beggar came along and asked the master a question, but he was more dead than alive at that point. The beggar said, "Oh, I know what you need. How about some huang mi zhou? Here, let me just give you the spoonful. Take another one. That's good. Slow down. All right. Have some more." Right? Wonderful picture of a beggar feeding a monk with burn scars on his head some life-saving yellow millet, huang mi zhou, huang millet porridge, bringing him back to life. Too good. Wow. Thank you, Wenji. 忽地盖天雪为毡，老人独卧非孤寒。知音盖者来慰问，雪中送炖黄米餐。Shifu's poetry is just so wonderful. Bedding on the ground with the sky as a roof, he used the snow as a blanket. The Venerable Master lay by himself, but he was not alone in the cold. A beggar came who knew his sound and cared for the Master's health. With snow all around, he prepared a meal made of yellow rice. Okay, it's Huangmi Zhou. I said Xiaomi Zhou. Millet would be Xiaomi Zhou. This is Huangmi Zhou, yellow rice porridge. Okay, I said something magical is happening. Indeed, indeed it is. We're going to find out next week, and I want to show people the here we go. Let's see, one more. Still looking. It's here somewhere. There it is. Here is the Nianpu. And I wanted to show you at age 44, there's a long section of that Master Hua cut into multiple entries, including, look, this long Q&A session with Wenji Gai, the Qi Gai, the beggar. So lots of dialogue back and forth with the beggar. So we're going to look into that next week because this encounter with the beggar Wenji continues and we get lots of details. Just the way people recall how Bhikshu Hongju Himtestu talked about his encounter with Manjushri Bodhisattva, the guy who called his bluff in the store, in the convenience store by the roadside. Hongju said he seemed like he knew everybody, he was everybody's friend, and yet nobody had never seen him before. And he had 2 dogs that he was trying to give away. Those 2 dogs were little lions. Anyway, so you remember that story. So Master Empty Cloud met Manjushri Bodhisattva in the guise of a beggar who indeed saved his life. So, wow, quite wonderful. And we'll get more details next week. So take a look. He's out in there just basically waiting. Many people will tell you that 3 days is the maximum you can go without water. Food, you can go longer. Your body starts to use its own inner resources. But our teacher, Master Empty Cloud, because he was a meditator, he could slow his body's metabolism down. So to sit there and recite the Buddha's name, what we don't know is that he was also increasing his ability to endure without water, without food, without shelter. He could generate internal heat, and he could endure hunger and thirst. However, even after 6 and 7 days, that's it. He's got to have something to sustain his all his inner processes, his heartbeat, his circulation, his breathing, all of the organs. And at that point, another day had passed, he would have died. But right at the nick of time, here is this mysterious Lai Gaija, this mysterious beggar, this homeless person who asks him a question. Who are you? What's your name? And Master Empty Cloud can't even answer. He doesn't have enough strength to give an answer, to open his mouth. So with the perfectly timed pot of bubbling yellow rice porridge, Wenji, the beggar, saves his life. So Shifu captures it in his verse. He calls him a Zhiyin Gaija, the beggar who knew his sound. Zhiyin, literally sound hearing one who hears the sound. What that means is we would say soulmate, we would say bosom friend, the person who is your bestie, right? Your best friend. So, 水中送盾, the phrase, the Chengyu, the idiom in Chinese is 水中送炭, sending coals to Newcastle. But in this case, it's sending a meal of food in the midst of the snow. Huang Michan, allowing him to eat yellow rice. Probably brown rice. I suspect we would say brown rice, right? A meal made of brown rice. So that's all it took to keep his strength, to bring his strength back, and to allow him to not die, thank you, and to continue his pilgrimage. Oh, now, who was this mysterious beggar? Good question. And we will find out next week. I'm going to, I would like to encourage everybody to join me in transferring today to Medicine Buddha's mantra. This is particularly for people who don't have food, who don't have medicine. And we can think of all the places in the world today who are suffering, population is suffering from hunger and from lack of medicine. So that's a good place to dedicate merit. Please send it out wherever you would like to send your merit. Please make a wish. Arahate samyak sambuddhaya tadyata om Aisaji Aisaji Aisaja Sangate Saha Namo Bhagavate Aisaja Vaidurya Prabharajaya Atagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Aisaji Aisaji Aisaja Sangate Saha Buddhaya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Daisaji Daisaji Daisaja Samyate Swaha And let us conclude today by bowing to the Buddha and then bowing to our teacher. Here we go. Second bow. Third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, that'll do it for us for today. Thank you all for joining, everybody. We will see you next week for more of the magic of the rescue by Master Empty Cloud. Can you wait? Wow. Yes. Hey, by the way, I should tell you, next week, our time is changing. I didn't tell you in time. I hope everybody hears this. We're going to, because the U.S. has gone through daylight savings, we are going up 1 hour. Next week, the lecture will be in America, where the daylight savings time changed, 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. in California. Here in Australia, in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, same time. 12:30 or 10:30, depending on where you are. But for those who have undergoing daylight savings, we will be going up an hour. All right? 大家要注意哈，下个礼拜了，7点半，不是6点半。All right. Thanks for reminding me, Chen Yu. We will start at 7:30. Pay attention to the email that comes to you. It will give you all the details. Alrighty now. Be well. Amitofo. Bye bye now.